Okay, thank you. Hopefully all will become clear, including my use of my description as a born-again optimization evangelist. I'm currently working for IBM as a decision optimization specialist. And what the job title means is my job is to talk to businesses, talk to organizations about how optimization specifically might help them. Although increasingly now, I really don't talk about just optimization because there's quite often a bit of ML required. There's other analytics components. So it's about working out where they are on the roadmap, where they are on this journey. Okay, but today is about my experience, my feelings. This is not necessarily the IBM point of view. This is actually what I've sort of encountered over the 40 years, relevant to bringing businesses to where they ought to be. It makes it a bit easier for me. I know the format of the day is very much that it's Q&A at the end. It makes it a bit easier for me if I get I know the audience have got a pulse. I'm actually going to start off by saying three things. So, decision optimization, prescriptive analytics, mathematical optimization. Could you please raise your hand if you know what any of those are? Come on, let's have a high hand. Because I'm really loving this moment, right? You know, that was about 50%, and I think some of the rest of you were just shy. Okay, so for me, I meet IT departments, analytics departments, business development teams of the biggest businesses. And I ask that question, and everybody sits on the hands. And for me, that's the actual root cause of the problem we've got and why businesses are not getting across the analytics wilderness. So, we know what it's about. You know, the reason we're in this room, we're at the OR conference, we know that there is the science of better. There's a better way businesses can operate. Rather than guessing, they can actually use the mathematical algorithms to... Now, one of my favorite, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the work of this guy, rock star in the firmament, winner of the Turing and Nobel Prizes, amongst several others. A couple of things, he said a lot of really good stuff. He really reckons that the computerization of algorithms and modeling is a really important thing. But my favorite one is his second one. Maybe you can only say that if you've won the Nobel Prize, you know. Another source of the foundation of this talk is Gartner. So Gartner recognise that currently about 10% of the businesses who should use prescriptive analytics are using it. But that's going to grow to 30-35% over the next 3-4 years. So we're at a time when it's actually going to happen, you know. So from Herbert Simon, if he doesn't value Nobel Prizes, or the other prizes, or the citations, or whatever he got, what did he value, do you think? Now, I mean, you say you're familiar with him, so perhaps you can discuss this. If you listen to what the guy says, the guy was actually trying to make a change. He was trying to improve the world, okay? So this guy wasn't trying to see how many lines he could get in a journal. Not that that's a bad thing, guys. But this guy was actually serving a higher cause. And I would suggest that the way to actually being as good as you can be is to actually serve that same higher cause. Because, you know, what is the true measure of what we achieve? I think he had it right. The true measure of what we achieve is actually the difference it gets out there. Okay? And if you go look at the Gartner, extrapolate from the Gartner comment, well, we ought to get recruiting. You know, we ought to start building up our skills. We ought to get out there because that's the next 3 years they're talking about. So that's the foundation for what I want to try and talk about today. This is now the time and place to actually start helping businesses to get across what I call the analytics wilderness, which I will explain. Okay, I've spent 40 years travelling this journey, and increasingly in recent years, for maybe about the last 9 years, I've been taking businesses the whole way. Yeah. In the early years, I was just wandering around in the desert a bit, and getting part way. That will become a bit clearer as well. So I've worked in several industries. I haven't had that many jobs. These three were the same job. These three were the same job. So the company just changed underneath me. I just carried on doing what I was doing. So I've made a career largely in trying to get businesses to where they need to be. When I emerged from Leeds University all those years ago with a degree in major minor operational research with computing, I'd seen how mathematical algorithms could be used to make businesses operate so much smarter and so much better and so much more efficiently. So I came out into the world saying, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to optimize the world. And sort of fell on my face, really. Well, so what happened, only in those days, only the oil companies and airlines were sort of doing anything, pretty much. I mean, you guys might, correct me on this, please do. So I was sentenced to 25 years hard IT. But in those days, that was how you actually brought benefits to the business. You put in, innovative IT systems, etc. Now, let's have a little look at why. So why did I fall flat on my face? Because I was mad keen to do this. Now, I fell flat on my face for a number of reasons. In those days, the tools weren't very good. Does anybody remember a magazine called RHS? Right-hand side. It was a journal of operational research, and it was called Right-hand Side because that's how you used to have to do it. It used to be about a huge matrix of coefficients. I mean, the first decent computerized simplex algorithms didn't come out until the 80s, and they've been developing ever since. But they've been developing through modeling languages, better algorithms. Cplex, since it was developed in 1988 to now, I was told, irrespective of computer power, on large-scale MIP is 250 times faster. I think there was about a 9% performance improvement this year, which is quite impressive considering it's really mature technology, a MIP. Yeah. What else happened? Feeble machines. I mean, don't get me wrong, computers weren't quite like that when I studied, but not far off. And then along came Moore's Law. Well, it wasn't Moore who did it, but then along came the drive to keep improving. And what machines do now compared to what they did then is just crazy. No data. Nobody had data. Now everybody's got data. The ERPs have changed that largely because their databases, front end's usually rubbish, but the databases are quite comprehensive. We've now got big data. We've got machine learning to help you fill the gaps and work out the bits of data that you actually need to run your business. So, no skills and knowledge. Now, one of the things, and we'll come back to this later on, is skills and knowledge has been growing a little, but not as much as the barrier is being lowered. As the tools get better, as it becomes embedded in more packages, as more solutions become known, the actual skills and knowledge required to access some of these benefits is coming down. Okay, so those were the old inhibitors. So that's why I fell flat on my face and nobody was using it in those days. So why isn't anybody using it now? Why is still only 10% of businesses using it now? Because that's what we need to address to actually make this happen. So first I'm going to describe why I call it the analytics wilderness. I've been assured by a Loughborough University professor of aeolian geomorphology that's a linear dune, one of her favourite types apparently. So what do businesses want or organisations want? They want happy stakeholder shareholders. If it's the NHS, it's us. If it's a business, then it's How do they get that? Well, that's a short path, just a few footsteps, like the footsteps, from getting the ROIs and KPIs. Now, there's always a balance between ROI and KPIs. You know, if you're a public service, it's all about ROIs within cost, etc. If you're a public company, it's all about the ROI, but you've also got to always match KPIs. Wave your arms, everyone. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Okay. So how do you achieve the ROIs and KPIs? Well, that's obvious. You just be really good. You operate efficiently and effectively. To operate efficiently and effectively, you need an efficient, effective, executable operating plan. Okay, so far so simple, you know. To get the big smiley face, this is, you know, so we know the back end of the journey quite well. So what do we do? Well, as IBM, first we'll sell you a database. But so the first thing to do is you actually get some transactional operating systems, and you actually start gathering your own data at least, you know. So that's the first thing people start to do. However, still a bit of a gap, and don't like the look of this side of the dune myself. Yeah. So what do we do next? We go to a BI system. Okay, now BI systems covers a lot of ground, and you know, there's been a lot of improvements in recent years. There's been a significant improvement in BI systems. Now, this is where the title comes from. I know it was a bit convoluted, guys, but so this is what I call the analytics wilderness. So this is what we want to achieve, and this is what we've done about it. And there's this sort of gap in between. So does anybody know how people currently fill that gap? Yeah, and generally a specific type of person. The spreadsheet ninja. Okay. I mean, this is where we are at the moment. 95% of the world runs their business on spreadsheets. So I have a question for you. This spreadsheet ninja, everybody knows he's really clever and he does amazing stuff and he's an expert in everything. How close does he get to the optimal business plan? Yeah, right. Okay. I mean, one of the things that we have is in optimization, it's very difficult to work out how much benefit you're going to get until you've actually done the work. Yeah, it's an absolute pain. So I had a little look at this a few years ago. I actually think there's a good thesis in this for somebody. But what I did was this. I said, okay, the amount of benefit against the effort. Okay, I'm not going to write it all, just remember what I said. And what happens is, this is in terms of creating this plan. So what happens is we get a sort of something like that, yeah? So, and businesses tend to stop about there, around the 80-20 mark. So what they'll do is they will put effort into the plan, and time and effort and expertise and people and more spreadsheets. And then once the return starts to diminish, you know, they'll say, enough's enough. Okay? So what we have there is we have what I call the optimization benefit gap. Okay? So that is how you actually can say what sort of benefit you're going to get. Now, so I haven't done all the work. I've drawn a little graph. So the question is, for each business, what's this curve like? Okay? So, and what it is, I believe it's a combination of the number of decision variables and independent constraints, etc. Well, it's actually not the number of decision variables, it's like the order of magnitude of the decision variables. So what you get, for example, all right, that line might be where I used to work. I worked for Lafarge. I optimized distribution, 500 trucks, 4 loads a day, nationwide, real-time optimization. When fully optimized, we got the same amount of work with the same or better service with 10% fewer trucks. Okay? And that's because it was quite complex. There was 500 trucks, there was, hundreds of locations to take into account. You've got different product types, you've got all sorts of chaos going on. So, around 10% was what we were getting. So that sort of line that I've just drawn freehand beautifully was probably somewhere around it, But if you're a small outfit, with 3 trucks, your lines are going to be like that. So the optimization benefit isn't, If you're something crazily complex, then you could have a line like that. Now, of course, the business will take it up here, they'll put more effort in, etc. So you can see how this spreadsheet ninja, depending on the complexity of what he's trying to plan, is not actually going to get there. So for medium and large size businesses relying on spreadsheet ninjas and non-optimized systems, there's a gap. Does that make sense to people? Yeah. Okay. So what do? How do we fill this gap? Well, the first thing we do is we move into predictive analytics, because what predictive analytics gives you is it gives you a better view of the future. There's a clue in the name, I suppose. So we use it for demand forecasting, but we use it predominantly to work out the relationship between outputs and inputs. So you've got business outputs, so you're going to get a smarter plan, right? But what do we do with the output of that? We give it to the spreadsheet ninja. So, okay, I think we've probably aggregated some of the decision variables here by having an understanding of or aggregated some of the variables, but we've still got a gap. So how should the gap be filled? Right, decision optimization. So we have decision optimization tools to plug the gap. So this is my view of the analytics wilderness. So let's talk about why people are not doing it. Why people are dropping into this swamp or whatever it is I've done on the graphic. Okay, so what's holding back Gartner's predicted flood? Well, awareness. That show of hands actually tells the tale. They don't even know it exists, let alone that it could be useful for them. And that's the vast majority of people I meet. Understanding, this is a good one. We already optimize. They're probably referring to the spreadsheet ninja or whatever, or some other sort of non-optimal system. It's not relevant for us. No, we don't do that. I reckon any business that's 100 million business, if they're not selling optimization, they should be using it, or both. Not ready yet. Now, Davenport, we all know Davenport because we're in analytics. Davenport's a bit of a blessing and a curse. It sort of places these different tools into people's perception and helps understand what we're trying to do. But it's a curse because people think they have to climb the ladder. So where are most people on Davenport? Most people on Davenport are somewhere around here. So if you talk to them about something up here, they go, no, I'd have to have oxygen to get up there. They look at it like a ladder, whereas it isn't a ladder. It's actually a virtuous circle that you keep going round, and you just sort of get better and better as you go. And we'll cover more of that a bit later. Disbelief. It just sounds too much like magic. You mean if I just tell it, what I've got, and these are the resources I've got, this is what I want to achieve, you'll tell me exactly the best way to do it? Nah. We did Hogwarts, Anybody here go to Hogwarts? Right, so that's the point proven. It's not magic, is it? It's actually science. Complexity. We have a national fear of maths. And I'm not sure we all help, So we've got scary maths, algorithms, and even scarier boffins, go forth my son and read the good books, Taha, Williams and Wolsey. I mean, the guys in you in here, that equation's nothing. But you show that.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm scared of maths. I married a mathematician, so
Yeah.
I never had to do maths.
Yeah.
Never that once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Fear of failure. Complex projects fail and underperform. Talk about that later. Lack of skills and knowledge. Apparently there's a worldwide shortage of pink unicorns. Did you know that? Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well let's talk through some of these. These are the new inhibitors. So awareness, right? We're falling at the first hurdle. How do we overcome lack of awareness? Anybody?
We could try not to be so boring.
Yeah, we tell people. Yeah, tell people about it. It's pretty trivial. So who do we need to tell? Who are these people whose hands stay down in these meetings? These are not data scientists generally. Occasionally they are, rarely. It's actually the people in business who are trying to improve their business. Okay? So who is it who's trying to improve their business? And where can we tell them that this stuff exists? This is a question, Where can we tell them that this stuff exists? Somebody who's trying to improve the performance. So in the curriculum, they don't have to know how to do the mathematics. I don't have to know how to do the mathematics. Most of the really difficult mathematics is already built into the box, into the engines. What they have to do is be aware that it exists. So my appeal is to say, well, why don't, certainly MBA, certainly business school, but a lot of these people just did who were keeping their hands down, perhaps only did first degrees in engineering or something relevant to what they're trying to do and what they're trying to improve. But actually the knowledge that these analytics tools exist would just help them, at least they could come to they would attend the meeting. Okay, understanding. Another one of my dodgy diagrams. I believe that what happens is managers of businesses are given resources to wield on behalf of the business. But they play whack-a-mole management. So they say, right, okay, we'll get costs down. Oh, no, service has gone down. Oh, get service. Oh, no, working time director. Oh, no, health and safety's gone down. So they play a game of whack-a-mole. They've got a lot of conflicting constraints. Do we know, anybody know any mathematical techniques that works well with conflicting constraints? Oh, that would be optimization, yeah? Whereas they're busy playing whack-a-mole. They don't know there is a way of building a business model and pulling through the right answer. So how do we do that? Explain it simply, as you were saying, and concentrate on the value proposition. Readiness. You don't have to climb the Davenport ladder. It's a continuous improvement loop. Okay, just get going round it. It's not only for high tech. Okay, I used to be an internal consultant for Lafarge, so I used to optimize supply chains for Lafarge around Europe, and we used Cplex, we used optimization, but we were not a high tech, sophisticated company. Anybody remember the Flintstones? Fred Flintstone worked in the quarrying industry. It's not changed, other than we have mechanicals rather than dinosaurs. It's the same business. It was not a high-tech business, and we did it. No benefit opportunity, already optimized. Well, I think this says slightly different. There is a varying opportunity, an opportunity of varying size, but there is an opportunity by using this. That's what I call the law of diminishing returns diagram. That's the acronym. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, disbelief, right? So nobody here went to Hogwarts, and we know how to do it. So it's not magic. But you're coming up against perception here. And perception is rubbish, because facts don't necessarily counter, perception. How do you... No, I think.
You maybe get into it shortly, but I think there is an additional challenge. I'm from BT, and
Yeah.
we often face these sort of problems with our business units.
Yeah.
We are in research, and we try to tell them this, this concept.
Yeah.
And often what we find is that the very people we're trying to help are the ones that may be out of job. Yeah?
Okay.
We're trying to optimize what you do, but then as a result,
Yeah.
you may have to find a different occupation.
Okay. When I put solutions in, sometimes there is headcount adjustments. There's quite often role adjustments, more often. But just as often, there's some change to the role and some elevation of the role. If you look at this spreadsheet ninja guy, so we looked at a large car plant, for example, to put some schedule optimization in there. And they had this spreadsheet ninja. And effectively, what the solution was to do was to say, right, instead of messing about trying to put different numbers in different cells until you actually get all the different dimensions coming up green, we can give you a button that says, bonk, auto plan. Okay? So if you give somebody an auto plan button, the first question they ask after that is, yeah, but what if? So what you can do is you can actually elevate the position of somebody who spends most of their time just, trying different numbers and, combinations out. You give them an auto plan, you can elevate them to become a scenario manager and actually make use of their knowledge rather than spend all their time, trying things out. Not in every case, but that is actually quite prevalent, because what you do is, by making the decision in seconds instead of days or hours or whatever, you actually elevate them to be able to do a lot of scenario management. Okay, we've got a projector again, guys. Okay, so how to counter predict? All right. First thing I would say is to come at it from multiple directions. People are inherently modal in that some people seek pleasure and some people seek to avoid pain. So always try and describe it in both terms. Another thing for the avoidance of pain is it's these days people are starting to use the term disruptive in a different way than I remember it. Disruptive used to be bad. Disruptive now means good. So, for example, these businesses. What's different about these businesses? Sorry? No one's, yeah. These businesses are massive, but actually have no assets. Airbnb, the largest seller of rooms, doesn't own a hotel. So, but what they do is they have the technology. So, very disruptive businesses. Celebrate success. So this is, rather than the avoidance of pain, this is the pursuit of pleasures, So win the President's Medal, win the Edelman Prize, etc. Publicise and share use cases. I know there are issues sometimes where people don't want to share use cases. No, we've got competitive advantage and I'm keeping it, and make it realistic, There is a big ROI. We'll come more to that without over-promising. So there's a section on that. So this was actually a graph from our optimization of ready-mix supply. And it basically showed week on week where we went from, this is suboptimal supply, towards optimal supply. And you get there. It's not instant. We'll cover that a bit later. So, complexity, national ailment, fear of maths and mathematicians. If you look at US business courses, MBAs, etc., they teach linear programming with equations. I've got a colleague in GBS who was educated in the States, and she's way better at the maths than I am. Whereas we take maths out of the syllabus so that people will enroll. Maths doesn't have to be horrifically scary. I didn't know set theory when I had to learn OPL programming language in 2008. But I did know how to play cards, And that sort of was my link to it, A pack of cards, let's get a set of the red nines in it, or is a good way of understanding and explaining set theory. Simplify explanations. I've had great success with this model of mine. It's not an IBM model, it's something that I do, and it's something I do workshops with people. Because if we start talking to customers about optimizing function and constraints and decision variables, it gets lost pretty quickly. So I draw a little quadrant chart here. I say, what are you trying to achieve? How would you measure it? That's always a great conversation to start with. What decisions do you need to make? What information do you need to actually drive this loop? And then this bit actually becomes an awful lot simpler than they can possibly imagine from the start of that conversation. Sorry, I might have spoiled your picture. Right, tooling. The tooling is improving dramatically. Tool capabilities, modeling languages, APIs, model builders. People are producing model builders. Modern data scientist tooling, cognitive. IBM have got some. Sorry, I'm not selling IBM. I've got some really good stuff coming up, which blends AI, cognitive, and decision optimization, all for the purpose of making it more accessible. We're trying to. Now, what this chart is this is what I call the closing the skills gap, and we'll cover more of this later. So the tools are actually lowering the barrier, yeah? So we need to increase the skills, but also the tools are meeting us part way. Okay, fear of failure. Now, there's an iceberg there because the main cause of failure of optimization solutions actually isn't specific to the fact that it's an optimization solution. Yeah, that bit is specific to it being an This bit is generic project failure causes. So it's all about, well, we didn't have the right stakeholders, we didn't have the right resources, we didn't head off in the right direction. All of those things that if you've done IT projects, IS projects that you know and hate, they're actually the main source of causes. Okay, but there is an even bigger source. This diagram, it's actually the ocean is the projects that don't succeed, not the iceberg. Because they don't know it exists, they don't even start the project. You guys will know businesses. You can look at a business like a Treasure Island and say, we know we could dig for gold there. But they don't know. They don't know to ask the question. They don't know that opportunity, that huge ROI opportunity exists. So the lack of awareness means actually the ocean is the projects that are failing because they're not even starting. Okay, this is projects only deliver a small proportion of the theoretical benefit. And this often happens. You do a proof of concept and you say, yes, we can save this amount. But then when you come to implement it, there's always a reduced scope. There's always a bit of the business they say, oh no, you can't optimize that, or we're not going to do that, or oh no, George does that, we'll leave that. There's then data, inaccuracies, aggregation. There's always compromises on the data. That takes a slice out of it. Model limitation, or what I call the life's too short, is, you don't need to know that every other week when Fred has the children on a Wednesday, he has to finish at 12:30. No, So there are always limitations, right? Implementation, not linked to the point of control. So if you've got, we do this optimization, this guy over there on a desk, and it's not actually getting live data, and it's not actually feeding into the points of control, then there's a slice of opportunity you're missing. Behavioral resistance to change. Computer's wrong. So yes, you do end up with a smaller proportion. But what happens is that gives you two things. First of all, this can still be enough to give you a 1-year payback. But also, you've got a roadmap for improvement. You know these dimensions here. So you can actually work forwards and improve each of those dimensions and start cranking this clock round. So yes, it's a feature, but understand it and work with it. Decision support with override. Partly because of the life's too short rule, we always give them, we put in decision support systems and allow them to override it. So what happens is, the computer system gives better efficiency, and it starts to become eroded as the guy overrides it. Now, if you put in a system whereby it makes the decisions, and then the planner overrides it, the problem is it's actually not just like that. It's actually a game of Kaplunk. Because if he keeps pulling sticks out, eventually those balls are going to fall into the tray. So again, the method to alleviate that problem is to give him his override first, and then optimize what you've got left. Okay, and this is another one. Realistic roadmaps. I always used to call it design a cathedral but build a shed. Okay, so you can see lots of wonderful things. You can see a real elaborate model. You can see a fantastic solution. But you can actually get a lot of benefits just by building a shed or even getting up to a bungalow. I did some work in Lafarge, and I probably got up to a bungalow or a house in optimisation of supply chain in the UK. And I was ready to go and get the other mansion, and the European Vice President saw this work. And I thought he was going to love it and say, yes, go on and move, extend the scope. And he said, no, you get on the plane, son, and you go and optimise the rest of Europe to where you've got to here. Because, this can be a bit of a curve. So, right, lack of skills and knowledge. Okay, so, as we said, that apart from your house, there's a worldwide shortage of pink unicorns. We're shocked, aren't we? So, can I have a bit of audience? I want to check the pulse again. So, could you please raise your hand if you are a data scientist? What?
We have lives.
You have lives. Yeah, but Harvard Business Review, what did they say about data scientists? That's a perfect answer and an intelligent and informed answer. Thank you. That's given me greater faith in the audience. So yeah, Harvard. we absolutely are. We're data scientists not raising our hands, is what I take from it.
Data, but data science is not our job.
Yeah, I know. But Harvard Business Review say data scientists, the sexiest job in the 21st century. So where are they all? Okay, so what I want to talk about is, and it comes from your comment really, what skills and knowledge do we need? You do not need to be a pink unicorn is what I'm saying. So a couple of things here. These two are IBM diagrams, but sort of ways of looking at the different roles. So we look at building a decision optimization solution using a team approach. So you've got end users, business analysts, quality assurance, OR experts, software engineer. So we now move on to talk about different personas: app developer, data engineer, business analyst, data scientists, all working in collaboration. And when we build a solution, we generally look at about 40% of the solution being the software, the Cplex or whatever. Then about 30% is the asset, or the he's one we did earlier. So, we've got a few models that we've already used, or we've got a bloke who's done that project. And then there's 30%, because you're special, So what these do is say that actually there's a team approach to this that we can use. Now, anybody here ski or snowboard? Ski, anybody? No? Okay, when you go skiing, there are different grades of run. So there's green that are dead easy, there's blue that's fairly easy, there's red that can be a bit tricky in sections, and black that's hard. And I think it's the same with the consumption of high-end analytics. I think there are different problems. So I think there are different skill levels needed. Obviously, the skill level to implement everybody uses a sat-nav. The skill level required to use that high-end analytics solution is fairly low. So the skills level needed actually does vary quite considerably. So my view is that if we look at this Venn diagram again, you've got the business domain knowledge, business analyst, you've got the IT guy who's going to sort of put it together, do data wrangling, do the UI, etc. But the OR guy, the amount of effort needed by him depends on the complexity of the model or the complexity of the solution. And that actually for green and blue, it may be possible to train these guys enough so they can cover it, certainly if it's a package implementation, etc. So what I'm saying is you do not need the full, for every instance, you do not need the full OR expert. So let's close the skills and knowledge gap from both sides. So a lot of people here and a lot of people at this conference are closing the gap by, making the technology better. So making the technology able to cover more use cases, doing studies that say, yes, if you've got this problem, then we can formulate this solution to use high-end analytics, etc. The tool makers are trying to sell their tools to more and more people with lower skill levels. So they're trying to make it easier all the time, Package vendors are trying to differentiate their packages, so they're trying to put the smarts into the packages. Okay. We need to do something from the other side. We need to spread awareness and understanding to other IT and business roles and personas, use teamwork, use only the level of skill required, and teach more broadly. Okay. So, that's the end of me talking. This is the Q&A session. So what I've done is I've primed the Q&A session by just putting a slide up there with some of my dodgier diagrams, thinking that they might be where you might to ask interesting questions. So open for questions, please.
Well, first I was going to say, should we just get you through?